Well, it is August the 10th of 2026, and we're ready for another session of Lunch and Learn. This time we have Tony Woodard, the Chief Inspector for the state, and Don Brannon, who serves as our industry here in Central Arkansas and wherever else he is needed. Tony, Don, welcome to Lunch and Learn.
Good to be with you, Tom.
We're talking about venting today, both draft assisted and positive. And Tony, I want to kind of start off by saying a few months ago we covered something very similar to this. Why are we having to do it again?
Because the manufacturer's installation instructions are just clearly not being read. I mean, I I don't know how to beat it into everybody. You've got to read them. Even if you've been doing the Cat threes for a while now, they change those INOs every January. You've got to go through, and I just wish the contractors would hold a training and every January, grab some of the new equipment and go, okay, guys, let's go through this and see what all's changed. Compare it to your old book, and you'll find several changes, quite a few, on what the manufacturer's requiring, which is 99 times out of 100 is more stringent than the standard code anyway.
Wow. Well, we're going to get into it, and I understand, things that I knew a year ago, I probably need a little bit of refresher on sometimes too. Let's uh let's see how this is going to progress for us. First off, on clearances.
Yes, every B vent. Now we are discussing B vent here. Your PVC vent is strictly installed per manufacturer's instructions. As if, but everything about it, no matter what your appliance is, it's going to tell you the product, how, where, when, and how you install it. This is B vent. You have to have that clearance for any B vent. It could be a decorative fireplace, water heater, furnace, flue furnace, your fireplace. Any of those fall under that. You've got to have that clearance all the way around it. And as we get further, there's more requirements.
I notice right here that it says we need to have 2 inches above the attic insulation. Well, how are you going to know how tall the insulation is going to be?
That's an excellent question. We were on with the energy department earlier today, and your standard blown cellulose is 14 inches. Now,
Okay.
that's standard. And then if you get up in zone four, you might have 20 inches. Typically, we see around 12, but that's good rule of thumb. Maybe put it up at 20 inches. Get an insulation shield up to about 20 inches. You should be covered.
Well, I wonder why anybody would try to short it. I mean, how much material can they save if they stop at 12 inches when they could have gone to 20?
I don't know because it's 26 gauge and they're not selling that in 3 foot lengths. It's 5 foot length.
Which
So
brings us to this slide right here, doesn't it?
yeah. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. The insulation shield itself is 26 gauge, not your 28 or 30 gauge. It is a fire rated 100% non combustible shield, which is 26 gauge. That's where it has to get that rating.
So if you're going to put one in, and let me just use an example. Let's say you've got a retrofit, and that old fiberglass insulation has settled down to where you can see the tops of the ceiling joist, and you're going to put it in. The question becomes, well, do I get it just above what's there, or do I anticipate that someday they might break down and put in some extra insulation in the attic?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And since we're about to have a hearing, I'm going to tell you what might play out in the hearing. So if a
Okay.
contractor actually put it in at 14 inches where there was 12, they would probably be okay because if they had, especially if they photographed it, if they were to photograph their work and did it, said, okay, this is what my insulation level was. I put it in at 2 inches. Now let's think about the future. Maybe you should put that 20-inch shield in case they do want to come back and blow some insulation in there. But I can tell you after going to hearings after all these years, that 2 inch, if the code says 2 inches and you got it, but the code, I think in the commentary they break it down. I don't believe, Don, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Does the code stipulate how many inches above insulation level? Or just does it say above insulation level?
It does say 2 inches.
Okay. Don said it does
Two
say two
inches.
inches.
Yeah.
Okay. So they would get away with that then.
Tony, you were saying that, okay, well, put it in, take a picture, and I'm thinking, geez, then I got to keep up with the picture. Why don't I just make it 20 inches or so, and then I can forget it? It's done. I don't have to worry about when my picture is.
Yeah, true. I agree. I do know that it has come down to a photographic world and everybody carrying their iPhones with them everywhere they go. And it has come down to you almost have to prove your work. It's sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I hear you. Clearances.
Okay. That was some work was taken and pains were put in with that to try to hold that vent in there. However, no insulation shield whatsoever. You can see the cellulose. In fact, that brings up what you said. If you can put that little pointer over to the back by underneath that electrical box, you
Yes,
see
sir.
the old insulation, and you can see they come in and blew some cellulose on top.
Goodness.
So right here, there's no insulation shield whatsoever on this one at all.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I never paid attention. That's a good photo you got right there.
Is there any clearance necessary between this the B vent here and the bracket that's holding it in
No,
place?
no, the bracket is fine. He's okay. What the fire code, what the clearance is strictly on the insulation, can't rest up against the vent.
Mm-hmm.
There's now here's the issue. Our new appliances, our new category, our appliance 1 and 2s, the 80%, they normally don't have a bonnet above 110 degrees. However, there are still some old units out there that, they might be retrofitting, however, but this insulation shield garnishes everything. So like I said, it strictly pertains to type B. Well, type B could use your little decorative fireplace or a fireplace. It can exceed that temperature, and then if the insulation, then it'll combust. But the code is every type B will have an insulation shield. I've had contractors go, well, my unit's not going to get hot enough to combust. That's correct. It probably won't. But the code, they had to write it in somewhere, and they said every type B that's going to penetrate an assembly that has insulation, they're going to protect it so insulation won't get up against it.
And you can have it finished and not have any questions by the time you've argued your point.
Yes. That's too good point.
All right. Okay, we got an installation, got a connector. Read that 803.2. Talk to us
Okay, the
about it.
connector shall be located entirely in the room. So your mechanical room, that they're not going to they're not going to go vertical, sideways, a horizontal assembly. When you're in your mechanical room, that little sheetrock above you is rated to horizontal assembly. Your walls on the other side are your vertical assembly. So your connector will strictly be visible, and it'll strictly be in a conditioned space, more say. Now, if you're trying to do say you're in an attic, for some reason you decide to put a water heater up there, not an instantaneous, because instantaneous are not going to be common vented. They're going to be vented by their instructions. But we do have some houses. We've got photos. I don't know why you do it, but we have water heaters standing vertical in the attic. And you were going to try to common vent that one. Well, that one's going to be type B all the way because you're in the attic, and then those connectors are going to be in the working deal. Now, that creates a platform issue for you now, because now you're going to have a solid platform communicating in front of this appliance all the way to the water heater. And that gets missed a lot. So that's something, but this is what it's saying. If you're up in the attic, you're not going through a assembly, but if you're down in the mechanical room, that connector will go to either you're coming up with connectorizer, if you're common venting, and then go to your type B common vent, and it penetrates the sheetrock. That's what they're going.
Now, when we're talking connectors, we're talking single wall right here, aren't we?
Well, okay. That's why I wanted to give you the two scenarios. The single wall,
Okay.
if in fact, now what you're starting to see when you common vent something per manufacturer's instructions, they're not allowing single wall pipe. You're going to be type B. When you common vent something, you're going to come up with type B connectors to a type B vent.
But if I understand this correctly, if you're in an attic, you're not going to use any single wall pipe, are you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And they're in the commentary, they're telling you about that connector. That's going to be type B vent. They're not going to allow the wall.
Now, here's your pipe specifications.
Pipe specifications. We'd run into this. Some old 312 pitch roofs you might, but where I see this, where we get issues, is a flat roof or a 112. and they hang a unit heater up close to the unit, up close to the roof, or get there and they say a 4 foot, got them up and they had their 2 foot. But you can't have any, when you come off your bonnet or your draft collar, you can't have any vent pipe less than the vent stack, what would be this vent pipe, can't be less than 5 foot. 5 foot's a minimum, no matter where you're at in your termination.
I understand. It's got to have a certain amount of slope to it. What, quarter
Yeah.
inch per foot?
Yeah, and that's not necessarily true. If we're level and we plumb bob it and we came up with a 90, we went straight up vertical. That's more in line with our horizontal run.
Mm-hmm.
The quarter inch, that's more in line with that. Even if you had a power venter, they kind of want a little gain on that. And the power venters will even tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Now we're over to the 90 plus furnaces.
Yes, sir. And that's going to be installed by that book, period. And you've got to read the book because everyone uses different concentric. Most of the manufacturers have their own. There's not really like a universal, like you go to a Carrier product, they sell their concentric kit. You go to a Bryant or a Train, they'll sell their concentric kit. Ream Rude, their concentric kit, and it's all by the book. They'll give you that model number. But we do have some that try to build pipe. You got to pay attention to that. Now,
do you have to have an insulation shield around the PVC?
Sir. No, sir, you don't. You can put it right through the sheetrock, put an approved caulk, and in the foam structures where they're doing foam houses, which you need to be going to a category 3 anyway with a concentric kit because it derives a combustion dilution air, and you've just closed off that attic, so it's no longer, you can't get the combustion air. You can spray the foam right around that as tight as possible.
Gotcha. All right. What kind of pipe can you use?
Part of the book. Yeah. The code book gives you that, but that book's going to tell you exactly because there are certain ones, especially like Canadian and other places, different ones, and you can't just use your standard Schedule 40. I like your slide there. Some of the pipe that's used for drain, waste, and vent, especially when they start upsizing this to 3 and 4 inch. Yeah, that's strictly for drain, waste, and vent. It's not for flue gases. It's for methane gases. There's a difference.
So if I'm on a job and I forgot my pipe and oh boy, plumber's got a piece of plumbing pipe out there, I can't just go over and grab it, can I?
If you don't want to get caught doing that, that's a bad redo.
Little drain pipe just won't work, will it?
Okay. Yes, sir. That's a problem.
Do not use.
Yeah, I think they've gotten rid of that stuff. I believe nationwide they've gotten rid of that foam core now.
Huh.
I know they had some lawsuits that triggered a lot of that, but that's why I'm telling folks, grab the book. The book's going to tell you exactly what product to use, what ASTM numbers, going to be stamped on the pipe. And if you order their concentric kit, you're going to get that. But, I believe most of the distributor houses that are stocking the 2 and the 3 inch PVC pipe know which one to stock for this. Now, HVAC distributors. Now, we have some distributors that are multi. They're plumbing supply and HVAC. So, pay attention.
Door swing.
Yeah, a lot of these decorative low boys, we call them, like you'll have a decorative fireplace on the outside wall. And I'll give you an example. Some people build these back patios and they'll put some of these little decorative deals, or the vent might come out in that exterior door. You got to have so much clearance instead of the commentary. And there's some old pictures where they showed one leaned up against the old deal, and it was a good photo. It had the wood door and the box at the very top of the vent said hot. So it was a pretty good picture. And the door was resting right up against it. So I'd like to have a picture later on after it started charcoal in a little different color.
All right. If we're going to run a vent connector into an old, like brick or masonry chimney.
Yeah, please get a hold of the state, get a hold of the inspector in your area or your municipality. If you have a good working relationship with your inspector and get with them, there's a lot to this. You've got to drill in, and if you crack that flue tile you've created, we strongly don't, even though the code allows this, we strongly, be careful with this. Now, we've got one in West Memphis we got involved with. It's 100 years old, and one of the reasons and when we use this for teaching, it's still got the old sash windows. The reason the folks haven't built up carbon monoxide is a house you can forget about air changes. It's got it. It's just leaking like if the door shuts, you see the light. windows, and that's why they're not sick. But in a new construction phase, the way they build them so tight, you got to be careful with this.
You ever been in one of those old houses that when the wind's blowing outside, the curtains inside would be kind of wiggling around?
No, but one of my first double wides that I inspected, the curtains were literally flying off like a Superman cape when I got in there. Vent was right there, and them curtains were just straight out flying. Oh boy!
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Now, this I like. Talk about this, how you're responsible as a heat and air conditioning contractor for the quality of the masonry chimney if
I'm
you tie
actually going to
into
step
it.
aside and let Don come in because Don's got another code that this could get into. So I'm going to swap places and let Mr. Brandon explain
All
this one.
right, let's see here. I bet this is it right here.
Yeah, it is. Well, 105.5, I think it is. It might be 105.4. But when we're tying into an existing chimney, then it leans back to use of material. So if you're going to reuse material, you got to condition it like new. So you got to get that chimney inspected, and if it needs cleaned, it's got to be cleaned so your flue gases flow properly. Once things soot, then soot begets soot, and it doesn't allow those flue gases to flow.
Yeah. Don, the way I'm reading this, it says used appliances, equipment, and devices shall not be reused unless such elements have been reconditioned, tested, and placed in good and proper working conditions. Now that tells me that if I'm going to use an existing masonry chimney and I'm just going to tie into where it was before, as soon as I tie into it, I'm responsible for that masonry chimney being in good shape.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Lord of mercy. You know, I think it's probably time to cut a hole in the roof. I'm just saying, I sure would hate to take responsibility for a masonry chimney like so many of those that I've seen in portions of our city. Mm. That's a lot of risk.
It is more than I'd want as a contractor, but
I did this second slide because I wanted to emphasize that while the code permits, there's a big however, and that's the however we've been talking about. Yeah, you can. However, you've got the responsibility. Is that a correct statement?
yes.
All right. Then we talk about horizontal terminations. And let's see, rather than us take a lot of time on the verbiage on this because there's so much of it, and everybody can go to the code and read down through it for the horizontal terminations as well as the vertical terminations. But Tony, you have a picture here of a job where you have this kind of drawn out real good. You want to cover that?
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So what you got in this situation, it worked out pretty good on this house. They had right on the criteria. They could get the 4 foot left or right of a window, and they had two. And this is one of those basement areas, and they had the 7 foot above for ambulatory traffic, so it wouldn't burn. And that picture doesn't do. Those are one of those vents. This is a wood burning fireplace, is what these are, and it strictly says how hot they are. And we use this photo for training for city inspectors because it also, if they were to try to put on that inside wall, they couldn't get the clearances because you have to have extra clearances from the inside corner and so forth. But this one worked fine. Now this clearance means from operable windows. Yeah. So if that's a fixed window, there's sometimes a little different scenario you can do. But this had one where they had the doors coming in and out. They couldn't go in there. They had to extend it out here, and then you had the operable window above. So it was it's hard to find that, but they did a good job with this one. It was a good one for training.
The code has a nice big picture like this that you can go through and read and figure it out. But it also has in table 503.8 all of these the column A there, the figure of clearance, the clearance location, the minimum distances, and it's pretty extensive. But if you've got a question about what your clearances need to be, this chart in the code is very easy to understand, and you can follow it very simply.
Yes, you can. Yeah, and I've yet to see most INOs, even on your fireplaces now. Most of them have that criteria in them. even with that pictorial, you'd be surprised how many actually have that pictorial showing the termination locations.
Well, Tony, it's so good to have you back. And Don, it's so good to have you. We appreciate y'all being in on Lunch and Learns because I think this is such an integral part of how Arkansas is growing, learning more about code, learning to be more professional, serving Arkansans better than we ever have before. And I take my hat off to the Department of Labor and Licensing, who that ultimately says whether or not you can participate in this. And we appreciate that they do. It shows that we have a partnership between our industry and our regulators for the good of the public. If you got any questions or compliments about what was said, if you got any complaints about what was said, you can call 501-682-9201, 682-9201. And we'll be back again next month, September the 14th, for another session of Lunch and Learn. Until then, finish the rest of your summer by taking good care of yourself. It's still mighty hot out there. Thank you again, Tony. Thank you again, Don.
Thank you for allowing us to be a part of it, Tom. Appreciate it.